If you guys saw the things and heard the things that we talk about before the stream starts, you would seriously laugh because
And likely subscribe for sure.
yeah, like she does some of the weirdest stuff, like pre-stream.
I really do.
For no reason too. Like I can't think of a reason to be doing half the stuff that she does. I try to give her tips. I try to give her a time. Like she knows what time we're gonna start the stream, and then somehow it's like getting ready 3 minutes before. And then it just comes and sits down
I'm
over
a lady
here.
who can get ready in 3 minutes, so I feel like that's a win. And you're welcome.
It's a something. It's a
You're
something.
welcome.
Yeah, it's a something. But anyway, that's not what you're
see,
here
you talked
for.
about that, now we lost a viewer.
No, that's fine. That's not what you're here for. You're here for the Mr. Ballen videos tonight.
Yes, if you haven't heard of Mr. Ballen, he's pretty cool.
Got more to say?
Nope.
Move your mic this way. If you're gonna face there. So yeah, anyway, this is Watch Stuff with Us. I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
And we are here live. We have 225 subscribers right now.
Yes,
we are
do.
trying to get to 250
Yes,
and eventually to 500. So you can help that cause out. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time we go live. So
feel free to comment, we respond.
Yes, we always respond to our comments and we will air them on the stream as long as this thing is working correctly. So yeah, if you are out there and watching this live, even if you're watching this on replay, let us know who you are and where you're from, and we'll get it on the screen and we'll talk about it and we'll talk to you directly. If you've been watching the stream for a while, you'll know that we changed the angle a little bit. So what do you think of that? I'm not sure. Maybe you don't care. I care about all the little things like that.
I feel like the higher angle is always good.
Yeah. High angles.
It's a good look.
Yeah, the beautification angle a little bit. So yeah, I hope it's better. Better. But anyway, that's what we're planning on doing tonight. We're going to talk about 2 Mr. Ballen videos, 2 of his most recent ones, and react to them as we watch.
I haven't seen his stuff for a while, but
I was gonna say,
every time I have, it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, of the ones that we watched, there was one I felt that was like pretty scary and like unsettling.
I remember that one.
But the other one was just like meh. So
yeah,
we'll see. This dude gets like 2 million views each and every video he puts out. So I want to try to hitch on to that train a little bit. And if you're watching right now, yes, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Comment, let us know who you are and where you're from. Like, we see people are watching, so don't be silent, don't be shy. Jump in and say what up.
What he said.
Yeah, what I said.
What you said.
We can take this time to go over our schedule for the rest of this week.
Sure.
We will be dropping videos, hopefully tomorrow from this live that we're doing right now. And then on Sunday evening, starting at around 6:30 p.m., I probably solo will be streaming the new Dune series called Dune Prophecy. It's a new HBO Max show that will be which will be debuting this week on HBO Max at 8 p.m. Central Time. So I will be live streaming and having a watch party with that. The last few watch parties we had a pretty good turnout, and it's pretty fun to have people to like actually watch these shows.
I love when they comment and then you actually don't feel like you're just speaking to yourself. Exactly.
Like I'm speaking to myself right now because we got 3 people watching and nobody's saying anything. So if you're watching, please say something. But yeah, that's going to be our schedule for the rest of this week. And then there'll be another video that's going to drop on Monday. And then we'll probably be back for another live stream on Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
Yep. What he said.
So yeah, that's usually our plan. We try to live stream 2 to 3 times a week, and we try to drop a video every day and a few shorts every day. So
we are on TikTok. We are on YouTube, obviously.
Yeah,
we are on X.
Yes. Twitter/X, whichever one you want to call it, we're there. We haven't tried any other like streaming services, so maybe we should try another one.
I don't really know that I know anymore.
or another social media service. We're on Facebook too, but like nobody ever seems to be on there watching.
Yeah, that's because our friends already know us.
They see enough of us in real life, so I guess they don't need to see us on the TV or phone.
They're
chilling.
over it.
Yeah. But anyway, let's go ahead and kick things off. Like I said, we will be watching a Mr. Ballen video to begin tonight. One of two. And then if you are watching and want to comment while we're watching and
Please
reacting
do.
to it, please do feel free. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of an intro and then we'll get it started.
Okie dokie.
On this episode of Watch Stuff with Us, Mr. Ballen Videos Part 5. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Watch Stuff with Us. I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
And we are going to be watching a Mr. Ballen video right now and reacting to it live and in the flesh. So if you like what we do, even if you don't like what we do, hit the like button because nobody hits the dislike button except for you. Don't even think about it. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe to our channel because we really need subscribers and we are trying to get to 500 subscribers and we're a little less than halfway there. So
we would appreciate you.
Yep, we'd appreciate it if you did that. So since we already got those things out the way, let's go ahead and get this video going and we will react to it.
Video is about a medical mystery that ultimately gets solved when somebody uncovers some very unsettling security footage that we will play at the end of this video. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do and we upload once a week.
I always get kind of weirded out by the actual found footage stuff. Like that little clip did make me feel a certain way because that's like that is creepy if you know that there's something medical going on and somebody's messing with your stuff behind the scenes, because that's always been one of my fears, is that when I'm unconscious and in surgery or something like that, or even a doctor, somebody could be messing with my samples, somebody could be doing anything. Like you're trusting these people with whatever is going on and whatever they're supposed to be finding out, and what if they mess it up?
I've watched so many medical shows, and even though they're fictional, that happens all the time. So
Yeah,
I'm curious to know how much
yeah.
in real life that happens. But
Let's see
hopefully
if there's
not
any,
too often.
Let's see if there's any medical malpractice in this one.
If that's of interest to you, please invite the like button to come over to your nice, calm backyard barbecue, but be sure to replace their hot dog with a lit stick of dynamite. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications.
Yeah, you can
so
subscribe
don't
to this
miss
channel,
any
but you
of our
better
weekly
subscribe to
uploads.
ours first.
Okay, let's get into today's story.
So weird.
On May 27th, 2022, an anesthesiologist named Dr. Chad Marsden stood inside of an operating room with a nurse, a surgeon, and their unconscious patient. Dr. Marsden.
Nothing
Scares
unusual
me.
there.
No, it still scares me though. Like there's nothing like that moment before you are put to sleep.
Yeah, it's true. Where you're
just
like, oh my god, this might be my last time on Earth.
Right, this might be my last thought.
Like, does anybody not think that? Or because
Oh.
I think that every time too.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who can just be cool with going into surgery or knowing that they're going to be under anesthesia and not feeling like, you know what, like I feel like everything's okay, but I'm a little nervous right now.
You know,
This
last
might
time
be
they wheeled
it.
me away from you, I was like, wait, I need a hug. Like,
And like
it might
even-
be my last one. I don't know.
I was gonna say, even though I always put on a strong face and a strong front
And font.
I was definitely nervous.
Oh, I'm nervous every time they take somebody
Yeah.
I know away too.
Yeah, you feel
It's
yeah. There's always something in
yeah.
the back of your head. You think about something could go wrong.
I hate not being able to control situations, and that sounds terrible, but I do, and that feeling of zero control is really scary.
Yeah, agreed.
And worked at the Baylor Scott and White Surgicare Center in Dallas, Texas. It was his
Surgicare.
job to make sure patients stayed asleep during surgery and then woke up safely afterward. That day, Dr. Marsden and his colleagues were wrapping up a routine liposuction procedure on a middle-aged woman. The surgeon had just finished stitching up the woman's incisions, and so Dr. Marsden, following protocol, began taking her slowly off of anesthesia to wake her back up again. And so Dr. Marsden turned off the anesthesia machine, which is this big rectangular device that takes the liquid anesthesia drugs and converts it into a vapor so it can be breathed in. And then Dr. Marsden removed the breathing mask from the woman's face. Then he changed her IV from an anesthetic drug mixture to regular saline. And so now that these drugs were not being pumped into her system, she would wake up over the next half hour or so. After that, Dr. Marsden and the nurse and the surgeon took their patient on the stretcher, and they pushed her out of the OR into the hallway and began making their way down towards the recovery room. But
Everything routine thus far, right?
Nothing scary yet.
Yep. Don't feel any certain way about this video. This is it. It's nothing. Nothing. But I'm guessing that they would have to.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get more interesting.
Yeah, something's gonna make it a little more spicy, right?
Let's check.
Hallway and began making their way down towards the recovery room. But as they were walking down this hallway, they bumped into more of their colleagues, another nurse and another anesthesiologist, and the hallway was tight enough that Dr. Marsden had to step aside to let these two pass. And then after they did, and they sort of waved at their colleagues, Marsden, the nurse, and the surgeon continued walking, and as they did, Marsden happened to look down at their patient, and immediately he knew something was wrong. This woman's skin had turned completely gray. Dr. Marsden was
See, worst fears unlocked.
I feel like anytime anybody's skin turns gray, that is a terrible
Yeah,
sign.
if you resemble
You
an
did.
alien, that is not a good look.
You did.
And then like that, man, yeah. I'll talk about it later.
Hard by this. He looked at her vital sign monitor and saw that her blood pressure, which just moments ago had been normal, was now dangerously high. And then, as he's staring at her monitor, her blood pressure plummeted. And then also her oxygen levels fell, and then she began foaming at the mouth. It was clear this woman was going into cardiac arrest, which meant if they didn't act quickly, her heart was going to stop. Now, Dr. Marsden, again, is sort of in shock at how quickly this is happening, but he just jumped into protocol. He began giving the woman chest compressions to make sure blood was flowing to her heart. Meanwhile, the surgeon administered oxygen and blood pressure medication, and the nurse called for an ambulance. The reason she had to call for an ambulance is because the Surgicare Center was not equipped to handle medical emergencies. It was only for scheduled surgeries. And so if there was
Now that's something that I think about all the time too. Is that
I've heard
you
a lot of
don't-
situations like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
you go to, like, even when I had my last surgery, I wasn't at a hospital. I was at a surgical center, and that does make me nervous. Like, if you, at least you know, if you're at a hospital, they have all the people you need there to take care of
And
you
all the
if something should
medications
happen.
and all the machines
Yeah,
and
like
everything.
everything is in house.
You don't have to
everything is
worry
good.
about taking the time to transport you to somewhere else and
Right.
possibly you croaking on the way.
Right. But yeah, when you do a surgery at a surgical center, like, you don't necessarily know how many people are there. Like,
Mm-mm.
I've had a surgery where I had my knee worked on, and the surgery is very early in the morning, and I'm pretty sure the team that was with me and maybe 1 to 2 additional people were the only ones that were there, and that made me nervous. Now, when I had my most recent surgery, that one, there were a lot of people there. Like, there were a lot of people waiting for surgery. Once they wheeled me in the back, I saw a lot of people there. So that made me feel pretty good, pretty safe, as you can.
Right.
When
As
you're
secure
gonna
as
be
you
in
can about the
surgery.
situation, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
emergency, all they could do was just stabilize the patient until paramedics arrived. And that's exactly what Dr. Marsden, the nurse, and the surgeon did. They got this woman stable, and then just a minute later, 2 paramedics came running down the hallway. They took possession of the patient, they put her onto their stretcher, out the door they went, they put her in the back of the ambulance, and they sped off to the local hospital. As Dr. Marsden watched the ambulance disappear down the road, he knew his patient was now in good hands, but he was still very shaken by the whole experience. Because this type of emergency, somebody going into unexplained sudden cardiac arrest following a totally routine surgery, was extremely rare. Meaning, for this to happen even just once over the course of somebody's medical career, to have witnessed something like that, was very rare. But for Dr. Marsden, this was not the first time he had seen this. In fact, literally the day before, a different patient at the Surgicare Center had also gone into sudden, unexplained
No, no,
cardiac.
no, 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 no.
Okay, do you think that they told them, the other patient, that like, hey, you know what? We're gonna do your surgery today. We're hoping that everything goes fine. But
No.
yesterday we had somebody go into cardiac arrest.
No,
We
they
don't want you to go into
absolutely
cardiac
are
arrest
unable
either.
to say anything like that.
Yep.
No, so they cannot disclose that. So
That's so scary.
okay,
Like
who's messing with the IV bag?
I mean, messing with the IV bag, doing something with the whatever's supposed to bring you back and help you like to recover, because all this stuff happened after they started slowing things down and like trying to bring them back.
No, there's either something wrong with the mixture that they have, or the person
Or
administering it
somebody's
is
messing around.
Yeah.
Yep, somebody's doing something
No
that
thanks.
ain't kosher.
Arrest following their routine procedure. So, as Dr. Marsden went back inside and began heading upstairs to the hospital administrator's office to tell them about this latest emergency, he kept thinking to himself how crazy it was that he had just witnessed these two unexplained sudden cardiac arrests basically back to back. But Dr. Marsden just thought to himself, hopefully this is just a really bad coincidence. The Surgicare Center's administrator was a woman named...
She looks shady already.
Not that she looks shady. Like, doesn't she look? This is like an AI picture. Like, that does not look like a real picture. That looks like something that AI like made up as a person and said like, you threw in generic name like Susan Rasmussen, and this is what came out.
What year was this? I'm just curious because she's got she's still working that hair bump.
The hair bump is cute though. It's cute.
Yeah,
it's cute.
I don't know. There's something
she
evil.
Got the bump it.
There's something evil in that look.
Yeah.
I don't know if I trust her.
Yeah, there probably is a little something behind that smile. That does make me just slightly nervous. Slightly nervous.
And when she heard about this second unexplained cardiac arrest, she knew she had to call a staff meeting. And so that evening, she, along with Dr. Marsden and over 24 other medical staff, doctors, nurses, other anesthesiologists, they met in this conference room in the back of the building. And once everybody was assembled, Ashley began by updating everyone on the two patients who had been rushed off to the hospital for their cardiac emergencies. And she said they had stabilized and they'd be okay. But Ashley then said what everybody in the room was thinking, which is sudden unexplained cardiac arrest is so rare, we can't just treat these things like coincidence, like something specific.
Why is the background of his video like misty? Like, I'm watching, I'm not even listening to him exactly. I'm like watching the mist in the background. Like, why is that there? Is that AI mist? Why am I talking about AI so much? I don't know. But what is that? Like, why does that just make it? Is that for like spookies? The spookies?
Yeah, that's all the people that passed.
Oh, okay.
In cardiac arrest during the surgeries at this.
So it's cardiac arrest mist?
Surgical center. It's a people mist.
People mist. Okay. Interesting theory. Don't think I agree with that one.
I'm right.
Was. Now, it was possible that the cause or causes behind these incidents were quite simple. Ashley said to the group, the first thing she did was she looked at the two patients' files to see if they had specific drug allergies or medical risk factors that might have been overlooked by staff. But when she looked at their files, neither patient had those risk factors or allergies, so that couldn't have been it. Ashley said she also looked for just a common thread between these two incidents. Like, were the patients doing something similar? Were they in for similar reasons? Were they in the same room? But no, they were in different operating rooms, going through different procedures with different medical teams.
Okay, do you have a theory thus far? I mean, outside of foul play, like we can't predict foul play. Unless we're going to say it's got to be foul play.
I mean, I'm just thinking that there's something with the serum that they're injecting these patients with after their anesthesia is taken away. I don't know what else it'd be if you got a totally different care team.
Right. What I want to know is okay, so we saw the little video snippet earlier. So obviously there is some foul play going on. Somebody's deciding to mess with this stuff and they're trying to hurt or kill patients as they're recovering. Outside of being sinister, what is a reason to decide to do this? Like, do you just want to be a serial killer? Like, do you just want to get away with murder, or is there some other reason? Like, I want to know the motivation behind stuff. I don't want somebody to just do something random and crazy just because they want to do something random and crazy. I need to know why. Mr. Ballen, you better give us the why.
I'm just guessing it's somebody that has beef with the surgical center itself, because if you have the care team change and none of the people are the same, then I feel like it's not like you have a vendetta against any particular specific particular person. Particular.
Yes.
It was
that works.
That was a good word. But I don't feel like you have that against anybody in particular. It maybe just the care center itself. Maybe you got fired. Maybe you know some stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer yet.
Yeah, I don't either. But I'm invested now. I want to see what's going on.
There was no obvious common thread between the two incidents. So Ashley said to the group that the only reasonable explanation that she could think of, at least at this point, was that perhaps the equipment in the Surgicare Center had malfunctioned. And so what she was going to do, out of an abundance of caution, was just begin testing all of the equipment in the building. And so Ashley told the group that in the meantime, while she was doing that, the rest of the staff should be extra attentive to their patients and also be on the lookout for potential problems with hospital equipment. Ashley watched the medical staff all nod their heads in agreement and begin sort of talking to each other, and then she thanked them all for being there and told them they could leave. 3 weeks later, on the afternoon of June 22nd, Ashley stood outside the OR in the hallway looking through a cabinet that contained surgical drugs. Ashley was still trying to find a connection between those two sudden cardiac arrests. She'd already checked all the Surgicare Center's equipment, from the anesthesia machines to the vital sign monitors to the breathing tubes, and everything was in perfect working condition. And so now, checking these drugs inside of this cabinet was sort of like her last resort. She'd printed out a list of recent drug recalls and was now comparing that list against all of the drugs inside of this cabinet. And so one by one, she was reading a drug and checking the date on it and comparing it with her list to make sure, they were not carrying recalled drugs still. But after going through dozens and dozens of bottles, there was nothing in their cabinet that was on the recall list. So Ashley still...
Okay, so it ain't the drugs and it isn't the equipment. I have no clue what it could be then.
Still just did not have an answer for why those two cardiac emergencies had happened. However, since that staff meeting 3 weeks earlier, the Surgicare Center had not had another cardiac emergency. And so Ashley was thinking...
Okay, have they said that they'd looked at the staff yet who was there? Like, was there any similarities in the people who were there? Or no, they said it was two different teams, right?
Yep.
Man.
Maybe, despite not knowing how this happened, these troubles are in the past. Ashley shut the drug cabinet and walked down the hallway towards the break room to grab her lunch. But the moment she walked inside, she saw a group of her colleagues sitting around a table looking very upset. In fact, some people were visibly crying. And so Ashley walked up to them and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And a nurse told her that one of their colleagues, an anesthesiologist named Dr. Melanie Kaspar, was dead. Apparently,
So now the anesthesiologist is dead. So if this is the person doing this, they got 3 murders under there.
Or she did it herself.
Maybe she was like testing it out to see if it was going to like work, and maybe she wanted to die. So it was like assisted.
Maybe she was trying to do some kind of experiment, and she realized that she accidentally killed 2 people and feel guilty. I don't know.
Maybe. Apparently, the night before, she had had a heart attack at her home, and her husband had found her and called 911, but unfortunately, by the time paramedics arrived, she was already deceased. Ashley was shocked. She knew Dr. Kaspar, and she knew she was in great shape. She was only in her mid-50s. I mean, she did not seem like someone who might just randomly have a heart attack. But then also, Ashley began to think that she remembered hearing in the last few days that Dr. Kaspar had actually been feeling sick. And so she wondered if maybe whatever illness she was suffering from had something to do with her heart attack. Either way, as the Surgicare administrator, it was Ashley's job to plan staff events like memorial services. And so Ashley told the group, like, "Hey, I'll get to work putting together a small ceremony for Dr. Kaspar." 5 days later, on June 27th, Ashley was sitting in front of her office computer ordering supplies for Dr. Kaspar's memorial when suddenly she heard these loud, fast footsteps out in the hall as if somebody was sprinting towards her office. And then a moment later, Ashley saw her door burst open and the anesthesiologist, Dr. Chad Marsden, was standing there and he looked absolutely horrified and he just said to her, "It's happening again." Ashley's stomach dropped and she jumped up and sprinted after Dr. Marsden, and they made their way to the hallway outside of the OR. And when they got there, Ashley immediately heard the sound of that long single beep of somebody's heart monitor flatlining. And she looked over and she saw one of the doors to an operating room was open, and inside she saw a surgeon performing chest compressions on an elderly patient. And even from out in the hall, Ashley could tell this man was unconscious, his skin was gray, and he was foaming at the mouth. It was exactly like the other cardiac emergencies that had happened before.
The foaming at the mouth part sounds like poison or like some bad reaction.
Yeah, why is this clinic still open?
Right.
I feel like after the first death, you should have closed to do like some kind of like training.
Well, the other two people didn't die.
Oh, well,
they got saved.
That's true,
but yeah, you would think that there'd be some kind of investigation, or
after the second one, you close for a little bit. After the coworker passes, you close for a while.
They did their own investigation though, and but it didn't bear any fruit. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if
it's real shady.
It is, and I need to know.
It's cursed.
I hope it's not something like.
I feel like they should call to like make the appointments and just be like, "I'm just confirming your appointment." Also, before I say like that's a set in stone, FYI. I want to make sure you know that there's a possibility right now. There's a 50-50 chance that something might go wrong. Maybe like 80% chance now.
Yeah, I wonder how many other successful surgeries had they performed.
Right, how many do they do on? Yeah.
Like were things okay, and then boom, here's another one, and then everything was good for a little while, and then boom, here's another one, or was it like literally 3 back to back, and like they just happened in succession? So
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Except this time was worse, because that beep, that flatlining beep, meant that this man's heart had actually stopped. And so Ashley just stood there in horror, watching the surgeon perform these chest compressions, knowing that if that didn't work, if they couldn't get this man's heart started again, he was about to die. Just then, Ashley heard the sound of the doors leading into the OR hallway open, and these 2 paramedics came rushing inside, and right as they passed her and got to the doorway leading into where this man was basically dying, Ashley heard the sound of the flatline beep turn into regular beeping, which meant the surgeon who was doing chest compressions had managed to restart this man's heart. And so Ashley was relieved, but by no means thought they're out of the woods yet. I mean, this man clearly is going through a medical emergency here. But the paramedics got the man off the OR table, they put him on a stretcher, and they wheeled him away. And so once they were gone, Ashley, Dr. Marsden, and the surgeon who'd been doing the chest compressions, they all just looked at each other like, what is going on here? Clearly, there is something causing all these sudden cardiac arrests, but still nobody knew what it was. Ashley just stood there for a moment.
Yeah, at that point, you need to stop. You gotta shut the center down, because we're gonna find out what's going on.
You need some more help.
We got one person watching. Jess, hello, what's up? What's going on? Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely sick to her stomach. If it wasn't the drugs and if it wasn't the medical equipment that caused these sudden cardiac arrests, then what was it? Well, Ashley was determined to find out.
AI Ashley.
Stop.
AI Ashley.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, my very first book, Mr. Ballen Presents Strange, Dark, and Mysterious, The Graphic Stories, is out right now and shipping worldwide. You can find it wherever books or audiobooks are sold. This book is truly a brand new experience for anybody who's a fan of old every single storytelling is just...
All right, yep, go buy his book if you want, but subscribe to our channel, please and thank you.
Over the next 2 months, Ashley interviewed and observed every single employee of the Surge Care Center to make sure they really were following their protocol absolutely to a T. And one after another, through her research, she discovered that they all were. They were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing. So the cardiac arrests could not be chalked up to faulty equipment, recalled drugs, or human error. And yet, the cardiac emergencies kept on happening at the Surgicare Center. There were 3 incidents in July and 4 more incidents in the first 3 weeks of August.
All right. If you're watching right now, what are your theories on why these things are occurring? And if there's foul play, that's your theory. What is the person's motivation behind doing this, other than just being evil?
Somebody
I'd
needs
love
to
to know
alert.
what you think.
Somebody needs to alert the media, though. Like, this should be out there for the public to know before they come into this clinic.
Yeah. Like, I
Something's
would never.
something's wrong.
And I mean, you have to think that these types of things do happen.
Yeah.
And people do have issues at surgery centers, but like, we don't know. Like, me and you have had surgery in the last few years. So how many people were lost or got, gravely ill at the surgery centers that we were at? Nobody tells you. I guess I never asked, but maybe I should ask next time.
I don't know. You want to know the answer, though, right before you go in.
True. Make you think twice about doing it.
Yep.
August. And so in total, that made 10 patients at the Surgicare Center who had all gone into sudden unexplained cardiac arrest. Now, none of them had died, but Ashley knew a few of them had been left with permanent heart damage. People were getting seriously injured on her watch. And she felt like, she can't figure out what's going on here. And so it's just a matter of time until somebody does die from one of these cardiac emergencies. And so she was feeling completely overwhelmed and stressed out and desperate until August 24th, when 2 things happened in quick succession. First, in the morning of August 24th, Ashley received a phone call from an officer at the Dallas Police Department, and they told her that the autopsy had been completed on Dr. Melanie Kaspar, the anesthesiologist who had died back in June from a heart attack at her home. And this police officer thought that Ashley really needed to know that her heart attack had not been natural. It was actually caused by an overdose of a drug called bupivacaine. So Ashley knew what bupivacaine was. It was a drug that was basically only used in surgical anesthesia. But Ashley had never heard of anybody abusing this drug or overdosing on it, because bupivacaine does not make you high like morphine or fentanyl does. It's closer.
So the anesthesiologist, like, who's her husband or something? Like, there has to be some sort of tie to whoever this person is that has access to these things.
I don't know, because it's still.
Yeah, because
like, why do you have a grudge with all these random strangers too?
Right. And how did you make this person overdose on this stuff? Like,
you're not even you don't have access to all that.
Right. This doesn't make sense.
Closer to Novocaine. It's like a numbing agent. And so Ashley told the officer how weird it was, the idea that she had died of an overdose of bupivacaine, of all drugs. And the officer agreed with her. But regardless, he thought Ashley should know, because he thought it was possible that Dr. Kaspar had gotten the bupivacaine from the Surgicare Center. And so, feeling totally confused, Ashley thanked the officer for telling her, then they hung up, and then Ashley walked to the OR hallway to check the drug cabinet where drugs like bupivacaine were stored. But as soon as she entered that hallway, the second thing happened that day. Ashley heard chaos break out inside of an operating room where she knew an 18-year-old boy was undergoing what should have been a routine sinus surgery. And so she watched helplessly as the doors flung open and a nurse came running out into the hall to call an ambulance. And then inside the room, Ashley saw an anesthesiologist performing chest compressions on this boy, and another doctor was administering oxygen and blood pressure medication.
You need to stop.
It was the same nightmare playing out now for an 11th time. But this time, after
11 times.
Okay.
If it's happened more than 2, look, you're done.
I thought the count was at like 4, but if this happens 11 times, okay. That's some greedy stuff. Like, you are so desperate to keep the money train going that you're willing to overlook that you've had this happen, and people who are healthy have went into cardiac arrest and either died or got close to dying.
Right.
11 different times.
You don't really care about them.
No, you don't care about your patients. Like, you need to figure out, you need to get to the bottom of it, because obviously at that point it's not random. When I thought it was just 4, because they really only have talked about 4 of the cases in this video. When I thought it was a 4, it was like, maybe a person could think that, like, this is just horrifically bad luck. But honestly, you get past 3 and you're like, no, something's going on. But 11?
Mm-mm. That's absurd.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy and not okay.
And they all should be suing.
Yeah, seriously.
For sure.
Seriously.
The patients, not the not the people working.
No, they should for sure.
EMTs wheeled this boy away to be driven off to the local hospital. Ashley was so desperate to figure out what was going on here that she just couldn't wait. And so she rounded up a couple of hospital staffers that were nearby, and they went into that operating room and they checked the medical equipment, they checked the drugs that had been used, they searched the floor for anything that might have had something to do with this. I mean, they even searched the trash can. And in the trash, Ashley found something that the second she saw it, it made her blood run cold. She couldn't believe somebody would do something this awful, or why they would do this. And so she took the thing she found in the trash and she ran out of the operating room and upstairs to call the police. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived at the Surgicare Center and they saw what Ashley had found in the trash. And when they looked at it, they knew they had a very serious situation on their hands. And so right away, they roped off the operating room where this 18-year-old boy had been, and they began looking for evidence inside of there. And then also, they began reviewing the security camera footage from the OR hallway. And
which you should have done the first time.
Okay. First time, I get.
Right.
Second time, I get. Third time, I'm skeptical. Fourth time, no, you need to check on some stuff. By this time, after that fourth time, they should have tore that place apart and looked for everything, including watching every video you can.
Of course, watch the videos, because then you know who's doing what and when and what time, and that should be because that should all be documented anyway.
Yes. How do you get this far down the line and have not checked the security cameras? Because obviously, once you get past the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th time, there's foul play going on. Something's happening. If your equipment is good, if the medication is good, it has to be the people.
Like, how do you just instill that much faith in your staff that you don't even look into it more?
I don't think that they're instilling faith. That was just negligence.
Heck of a lot of it.
Footage, they would find something truly chilling going on in that hallway that totally explained all of the sudden cardiac arrests that had been happening inside the Surgicare Center. This is what they saw on the clearest piece of footage, which was shot 5 days earlier on August 19th. A hospital employee is seen walking down the OR hallway carrying a stack of papers under his arm. He walks past a couple of his colleagues and he arrives in front of this big metallic device that sort of looks like a refrigerator, and he opens it up and he reaches inside and he pulls out a saline IV bag. Now, when he does this, nobody else in the hallway bats an eye because this is a totally normal thing to do. That metal device was a warming machine where saline IV bags were stored to be used during or after surgeries. At any given point, this warmer would contain a few dozen IV bags, and whenever it got low, certain staff members would restock it. But the police watched this footage over and over again, and they saw this employee who walks up to the warmer was not just carrying a stack of papers. He was also hiding something within those papers, his own saline IV bag. And so before this man takes out an IV bag from the warmer, he takes this hidden one and places it in the warmer as well. So he's basically swapped one for one. And this was absolutely bizarre because it was not his job to be restocking the warmer. He shouldn't have been putting anything inside of the warmer. And so about 30 minutes after this employee has placed his own IV bag inside of the warmer, a nurse comes out of the OR, walks down the hallway, opens up the warmer, takes one of the warmed up IV bags, carries it down the hall, goes back into the OR, and minutes later, her patient goes into cardiac arrest. It would turn out that nurse had inadvertently grabbed the saline bag that the male employee had secretly placed just minutes before. And she didn't know that that saline bag is what caused the cardiac arrest. Nobody knew until days later when Ashley is so desperate to figure out why all these patients are going into cardiac arrest that she began searching through the trash, and she would find an empty IV bag, and she would see very clearly there was a little puncture on it, just big enough for a needle. And so after seeing this security footage, the police analyzed that empty IV bag that Ashley had found in the trash with a puncture on it to see exactly what was in that IV that went into the 18-year-old who also went into cardiac arrest. And inside, they found a combination of 3 drugs that when combined are like a biological bomb that will send somebody into cardiac arrest within minutes. They were lidocaine, which is an anesthetic, epinephrine, which is basically pure adrenaline, and crucially, the third drug found was bupivacaine, the anesthetic that Dr. Melanie Kaspar had overdosed on, which caused her to die of a heart attack. And this discovery meant that Dr. Kaspar's death was almost certainly connected to these poisoned IV bags.
Okay, so
how did she get that solution into her body, though?
Right, how is this? Is she stealing IV bags? Or, like, there has to be some sort of relationship between her and the guy who is restocking this stuff, or she's like taking IV bags for herself and like using them at home, or something.
He's putting the solution in her drinks to get it in her system.
But how is he? Maybe.
Because I don't know how
she has like a water bottle and he like adds it to it.
She's probably not just like hooking up an IV during work.
That's what I'm saying. Of course not. I would think not.
She would know if he was injecting her with a syringe. So that's my guess is he's adding a little bit of something to her drinks or her food or.
All right, you're the one who specializes in the murder mysteries and all that stuff. So let's see if you're right.
In the few days before Dr. Kaspar's death, she had been feeling sick and dehydrated. And on the day of her death, she was feeling so unwell at work that, unbeknownst to any of her colleagues, she had taken a saline IV bag from that warmer and brought it home with her to rehydrate herself.
Come on, man.
Pretty sure that's illegal too, but
yeah. And then she took the spike one. Like, that's wild. That's messed up. Like, okay, she shouldn't have been stealing it in the first place, but she decides to steal it and gets a bad one.
She probably just had the flu or something and just wanted some more saline.
That's fine, but you can't take it from your job.
No, I know. I'm just saying I think my theory is debunked because
Yep.
I thought maybe she was being slowly poisoned.
She just did it to herself. Dang, man. Well, yeah.
Unknowingly did it to herself.
Yeah, true.
Still made a bad choice. But
yeah, shouldn't have taken it to begin with.
No.
But yeah, turned out to be a bad steal.
Well, that's why you don't try to do
Steal
things that are not appropriate. Do things that you're not supposed to do because karma gets you.
Note to yourselves: don't be a sneaky McSneakerson.
Hydrate herself. But unfortunately, the one that she grabbed was one of the poisoned ones. When paramedics arrived at Dr. Kaspar's home, they found her still with the IV needle in her arm. But at the time, nobody connected her death with all of the cardiac emergencies at the Surgicare Center. Well, nobody except for the employee who was actually poisoning the IV bags. That employee was an anesthesiologist, but it was not Dr. Chad Marsden. It was the person that Dr. Marsden had to get out of the way for in the hallway that first time his patient had gone into cardiac arrest. The man who was doing the tampering was Dr. Reynaldo.
He looks like a man who'd be doing tampering.
I was going to say, he looks like a tamperer.
Tamperer. Look at him. He's just like, I did it. I have no shame.
I wanted to kill some people. Like, diabolical.
People
I've used that word so many times. Yes, they do. I don't understand this. Like, why do you just want to? Like, it's one thing to be out there on some stuff where you like want revenge and you're trying to hurt somebody because of that. I'm not saying that it's justified, but
to do it to complete strangers that didn't do anything to you, like that's another level.
That's a level above everything else. And
yeah,
you deserve a.
Dude looks shady.
Yeah, he looks shady. And like, who on their mugshot is? If this is mugshot, who smiles on their mugshot like this? Like that. I don't like this dude at all already. Even after he killed 11 people or however many people he killed.
He was 58 years old, and he had only worked at the Surgicare Center for about a year. And he had flown mostly under the radar there until May 19th of 2022, which was about a week before the sudden, unexplained cardiac arrests had begun at the Surgicare Center. On that day, on May 19th, Dr. Ortiz had allowed one of his patients to stop breathing, nearly killing the patient. And so as a result of that incident, Dr. Ortiz had been placed under internal investigation by the Surgicare Center, and he was facing the possibility of losing his medical license because of negligence. So to try to avoid losing his medical license, Dr. Ortiz decided he would just try to make all the other doctors look negligent too, taking the attention off of himself. And so he began sabotaging his colleagues' surgeries by injecting those drugs into their patients' IV bags, knowing it would cause...
And still walking past all the other...
What a stupid theory. Like, his what a stupid way of trying to get away with things. Like, I'm going to bring more heat on everybody else so that they don't think that it's just me.
There's a lot of people that do that, though.
But instead, you're still bringing all this heat and all this scrutiny upon your area, and that's going to get you caught up.
I'm still stuck on the fact that so many people came in contact with him every day and saw him in areas he shouldn't be, saw him handling products that he shouldn't be.
Nobody said that he was creepy. Like,
right.
This dude had to be creepy.
Like, he's stealthily going around, probably not so stealthily, but going around swapping items, handling things that he doesn't normally touch, go around, and nobody says anything. Like, how he did this so many days. It's not just one day y'all missed him.
Right.
All the days.
Yes.
This guy.
Who went into cardiac arrest at the Surgicare Center died. However, Dr. Kaspar, who took that tampered IV bag home with her, did die. And so ultimately, Dr. Ortiz was responsible for her death. In April of 2024, Dr. Ortiz was found guilty on multiple charges, and he is currently facing a sentence of up to 190 years in prison.
Dang. I don't think he's going to make it all those years.
Probably not. So maybe somebody's gonna give him an IV bag in prison, and that'll keep him alive as opposed to killing him. Dude, all right. Well, there you got it. That was an interesting Mr. Ballen video. What are your final thoughts on it?
I'm just baffled about how many blind people there are in the world, and I don't mean that literally, but just how many people don't pay attention. Like, in your workplace, generally, you kind of do the same thing every day, or most people do, especially in that kind of setting. And so if you're seeing something abnormal, that should be standing out, but it's not. And I don't know, I feel like so many people were to blame in this for overlooking everything, but also this guy's a nut job.
I think outside of Dr. Ortiz, the person who deserves the most blame is the lady who runs the surgical center, because she allowed the place to continue to be open all of this time while you have 11 people who have went into cardiac arrest over a relatively small period of time.
Yeah.
After a certain point, you have to stop everything. There should be some kind of peer review that happens at a place like this.
Well, he's already on watch or whatever it's called. Yeah. So wouldn't you think that you would kind of check him out?
He'd be the first one, unless you got other people there that are on probation.
Well, he's trying to make them all look guilty, but I don't know how many people were on probation.
Which makes me think
I would have looked at him a little bit more closely because he's on probation.
It makes me think that this lady who was running this place was shady to begin with.
That's what I said. She looked a little iffy.
So yeah, what do you think? Drop a comment below and let us know. Who's to blame in this situation, or at least who deserves the biggest share of the blame? Drop that comment below. Let us know what you think. I'm JD.
And I'm Katie.
Thanks for watching another episode of Watch Stuff with us. Peace. All right, so that's one video down.
Yep.
That's still wild, man. I'm going to try to get this second one set up, but I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. There are so many people who are just just bad people. Like, how can you think that this is gonna be cool? That's fine. This is what we're gonna do. It'll be all right. I'm gonna
continue to keep this clinic open.
Yeah.
After you're having all of these incidences that are major, catastrophic.
Yep. And like I said, that makes me think it's a 100% money thing. Like, when nothing gonna stop that show from earning as much money as they could. And
doctors, man.
There are a lot of great doctors out there, a lot of amazing doctors out there.
There are.
In a situation like this, you had a doctor who was completely willing to overlook major signs in order to keep a business running.
More than flaws.
Yeah, like she's negligent. Like 100% negligent, and she should be held accountable for that.
Oh, for sure.
No matter what, she should be held accountable for that. She shouldn't, she might not have to serve jail time or anything like that, but she should probably lose her license to operate a facility like that, to let something like that continue to happen.
I wonder if it closed after that, or they just
I don't know.
Eliminated the problem and carried on.
Yeah, I don't know. But we're going to do another Mr. Ballen video. That one was entertaining. Like, I like these videos, and it takes him a little time to, like, he kind of stretches it out a little bit. And I get it. But that was entertaining. So we're going to jump in and do another one. And we're going to do all our intro stuff, just like we did before, and then jump into a new video.
So hang tight.
Yes, so hang on. And yeah, if you're watching, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you
Comment,
just so happen to
share.
jump in on this live stream right now, and aren't here live, drop a comment below, because we always respond to our comments. Do it now,
please.
All right, so you ready?
Yes.
On this episode of Watch Stuff with Us, we got another episode of Mr. Ballen.
Woo!
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Watch Stuff with Us. I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
And we are here to do and review another episode of Mr. Ballen. I think this is our 6th one at this point in time, so we've done a lot. And if you missed any of those, go back and check out each of those. I don't know why I'm pausing like this, but go check out all our other stuff, because we've done a bunch of them. Yes. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button too, drop a comment below, because we respond to all of them.
We do.
So right now, we're going to go into another Mr. Ballen video, so let's do this.
Woohoo!
I like his thumbnails too.
I know. They're cool.
The story is about a police officer in Argentina who encounters something totally inexplicable by the side of the road. Some have called this story one of the most credible paranormal stories that exist.
Okay, if this is going to be about paranormal stuff, like, this is right up my alley.
I know
this is the stuff that I like, because I am a believer. I love stuff that is like scary like this. Like, the last video that we did was about like somebody who's just a horrible person and doing some medical malpractice. But like this one, there's some mystery in it, I'm sure. Like, paranormal activity, scary, spooky stuff. Like, this is what I dig.
That exists. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format,
and subscribe to me or buy my book and beep up.
Yep.
He is cool though.
Right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. On the night of March 2nd, 2006, a 28-year-old police corporal named Sergio Pucheta rode his motorcycle down.
Wait, how old?
How old and what phone?
Did they say 28 or 48?
Either or. Look at this phone. The phone is 48.
What year did they say it was?
I don't know.
Okay, we need to go back a second, because I'm.
Let's rewind it a little bit.
Fresh produce with wax replicas. Also, please subscribe. And it was famous in 2006. A 28-year-old police corporal named Sergio Pucheta rode his motorcycle. The story is about a police officer in Argentina who encounters something totally inexplicable by this. Okay, let's get into today's stories.
Okay, now we got to really pay attention. Okay, now listen to this.
On the night of March 2nd, 2006, a 28-year-old police corporal named Sergio Pucheta wrote
2006. That phone he must have had for a while.
Yeah, that's an old phone for 2006. Like, even I had a nicer phone back then. That phone looks like you can play Snake on it, and we were past that point in 2006.
That was such a good game.
His motorcycle down a dirt road in rural Argentina. It was pitch black out with no streetlights, and on either side of the road were mostly open fields, interspersed with patches of forest, and there were mountains rising up in the background. There was nobody around him for miles. This was an area called La Pampa, and it was famous for its beautiful landscapes and cowboy culture. Sergio was out here patrolling for poachers, who came out here at night to trap or kill the wild cats, monkeys, and birds that often sold for lots of money on the black market. It had been a quiet night so far, but Sergio knew from experience that the later it got, the more likely it would be that he would catch someone doing something illegal. At around 10 p.m., Sergio was riding down the road towards a crossroads that locals called El Cruce de las Cañas, and up ahead, he saw the red taillights of a car. And at first, it seemed like this car was coming to a stop, but then it turned off the road and drove into this nearby cluster of low trees and thick vegetation about the size of a football field, and then these taillights disappeared. Sergio felt his heart start to beat a bit faster because he knew this had to be a poacher. Maybe, he thought, this poacher had seen him and realized he could be a cop, and so was driving off the road and basically trying to hide from Sergio. Sergio sped up.
Okay, I'm not cool with poachers.
And when he reached the spot where the...
No, that's horrible. Like, that's horrible. I don't know why people would feel the need to go in and steal and or kill animals.
It's just for their financial gain.
Them. Yeah, and I get it that it can be worth a lot of money, but yeah, you need to just leave animals alone. Leave them alone. Especially the people who poach like endangered species. Like, those are the worst of the worst.
Yeah, just for the horns and tusks and things like that.
Sergio sped up on his motorcycle, and when he reached the spot where this car had left the road, he pulled over and he parked. Sergio climbed off his bike and then radioed into headquarters his location and asked for backup. Then he unholstered his gun. He knew this far out, it was going to take backup a long time to get here, and Sergio had no intentions of letting these poachers get away. Sergio had a flashlight, but he didn't bother to take it out because he didn't want to give away his position. But in the darkness, Sergio was having a really hard time finding where in this vegetation the car had gone. There were no broken branches or crushed bushes. I mean, the entire vegetation looked completely uniform and intact. And so Sergio, with his gun drawn in front of him, began pacing along the shoulder of this road, looking for tire tracks on the ground. But after looking for a while, he couldn't find any. Like, there was no indication that a car was ever here or drove into this vegetation. And so eventually, Sergio just stopped and listened. He figured the poachers could only have driven a little ways into the trees before stopping, and so he hoped to hear them moving around. But as he stood there, all he could hear was the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the crickets and cicadas chirping and buzzing, the hoots of owls, and the long, strange chirring sound of birds known as nightjars. Sergio knew if he wanted to catch these
cute they are.
He couldn't just sit here all night.
But that is a cute bird.
So,
that is a cute bird, though.
That's a really cute bird.
But I don't like birds.
To catch these poachers, he couldn't just sit here all night hoping they made a noise. So he took a deep breath, stepped off the road, and made his way into the trees. He walked quickly but carefully, moving branches aside with one hand and holding his gun with the other, constantly scanning left and right for any movement or light. And when he was about 100 feet into the trees, he finally saw something. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glint in the darkness. And for a second, it almost looked like moonlight reflecting off of something metal. And so Sergio thought, that's got to be the car. I've caught them. They're right here. But when Sergio turned to face them, he immediately realized there was no car. What he saw was so jarring, so terrifying, that for a second, he just stood there frozen to the spot. And as he did, the sounds in the forest began to amplify all around him, and he felt this panic building inside of his chest. He wanted to scream, but when he opened his mouth, no sound came out.
Now, that's something that watching these types of videos with like different things with like aliens and stuff like that, like it's always like that. These people have these encounters with these beings and stuff, and they go to like scream out and they can't. They are like filled with panic, like more so than like just normal panic, but they get filled with it. And the the videos that I've seen, they've even had like aliens who could like direct these like feelings toward like a person. Like, so like I'm standing here or I'm sitting here with you, and they could direct this energy towards me and make me feel like that, but you wouldn't feel like that. So yeah, like I've seen videos like that before, and that stuff is interesting, man. Like that's scary to have that level of technology or that sort of ability to be able to make someone feel like that.
You are such a believer in all this stuff.
I am. I really am. I really am. Like I truly think that there are other beings out there.
I'm kind of neutral. I mean, there might be, there might not be. I'm not nervous about it. I'm not excited about it. I'm just like, if it happens, it happens. But yeah, you're like, let's go.
Yep. No, I'm in there. I'm a true believer. I am a true believer.
A few minutes later, an off-duty police officer who was friendly with Sergio was heading to bed in his home when his phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw it was Sergio calling him, so he opened his phone and said hello. But Sergio didn't say hello back. Instead, in a voice that was unusually cold and monotone, Sergio just said, "Come to Las Cañas. You know what to do." And before this other officer could ask Sergio what he meant, what's going on here, the line just went dead. The officer tried to call Sergio back, but Sergio didn't answer. The officer really had no idea what was going on here. This was exceptionally odd behavior by Sergio. And so this officer felt compelled to call it into headquarters just in case. But when this officer got the dispatcher on the phone, the dispatcher told him they actually already had backup on their way to Sergio right now. And the dispatcher told him that they were actually pretty worried about Sergio too. Because after Sergio's first radio call had come in where he gave his location and asked for backup, they had lost contact with him. Every time they had tried to call him back, he wasn't answering. Meanwhile, the
aliens. Aliens, I tell you.
Aliens.
100% aliens. That's my call. If you had to guess something else, what would it be? Or do you think it's aliens too?
It's gotta be aliens.
Gotta be aliens.
It'd be aliens.
That's where I'm at.
While the backup, 3 police cars full of officers, sped past cornfields into the remote area that contained Las Cañas, where Sergio had last been. And when they got to the actual spot on the road where Sergio had said he was, like his actual location, they found his motorcycle, but Sergio was nowhere to be found, and nobody else was there either. It was just this motorcycle. And so the 3 cars pulled over near the motorcycle, and the officers got out. One of the officers tried again to hail Sergio on the radio, but again, they were met with silence. And so they all fanned out with their flashlights and began searching.
The aliens do have things to disrupt communication too. Yes.
You're just like, there's a reason for everything.
There is. Unlike the other video that we watched, and it was just some person doing crazy stuff. Like in something like this.
Aliens don't do crazy stuff. No. They make plans.
They have plans and they have techniques and they have abilities. And they are using all of them. And I'm hyped because I like aliens. I don't like them, but I just find stuff like this interesting. So yeah, this gets me excited.
Searching this road up and down, looking for any sign of Sergio. And after a minute or two, one of the officers spotted this cluster of metal in the sand by the side of the road. Now, this officer did not immediately connect whatever this metal was with whatever happened to Sergio. They just walked over to see what it was. But when he actually reached it and shone his light directly on it, he gasped and called out to the other officers, "Over here!" Because these pieces of metal definitely had something to do with Sergio. They were the completely disassembled parts of Sergio's radio and his gun. This discovery immediately launched a major police search operation. More backup poured into Las Cañas, and officers teamed up and continued to search the area. And pretty quickly, officers found what looked like Sergio's footprints heading away from the road and into the cluster of trees. So the officers began to follow them.
That looks like a footprint on the moon.
Aliens on the moon. They're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they are. Especially on the dark side of the moon. You don't know what's there. Very few people have seen it. Why do you think we haven't been back to the moon? It's not because we lost the technology.
We got disappointed that it wasn't cheese. That was a bummer. We were excited.
However, after getting about 100 feet into the trees following these footsteps, they noticed something very strange. The footprints were getting further and further apart. At first, the officers thought, okay, well, maybe Sergio began sprinting and taking really big, long strides. But as they continued following these steps through the trees and out the backside into this big field, the distance between these steps continued to get bigger and bigger until finally the gap from one step to the next was 10 feet apart, then 15 feet apart, and then 20 feet apart. I mean, even if Sergio had been sprinting at full speed and literally leaping, this was too big of a distance to cover. I mean, this was literally humanly impossible. The police officers following these prints looked at each other uneasily. Each footprint was perfectly clear. There was no mistaking this was a human footprint. And then also, they were certain they were not missing prints in between the ones they could see. They really were spaced this far apart. The officers had been talking to each other when they began following these prints. But now they just walked in silence. For more.
So is there any sort of normal explanation for something like this?
Unless he did long jump for a living, no.
All right, and just kept skipping. Wee, wee,
or he's like pole vaulting around, like he skip on a big stick. I don't know.
See, it's stuff like this that makes me a believer. Because this stuff cannot be explained. It can't.
Maybe he just got really long legs all of a sudden.
Nothing in this is normal. It cannot be explained. So it has to be something.
I don't know.
Paranormal or alien normal.
Than 1 mile, they tracked Sergio's bizarre, seemingly impossible trail through open fields and trees until they arrived at a cornfield. And then suddenly, the trail of footprints just stopped. It was like Sergio had pushed off his right foot and then just vanished. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video.
Nope.
In 2017,
you
can easily switch to another one who can off your first month of therapy.
Maybe. Not right now. We're trying to do this. Not a good time.
The search for Sergio went on all night, despite the fact that it started to pour at around 2 a.m. But the officers never gave up. However, beyond those footsteps, they never found any other trace of Sergio. And there was one other thing police couldn't find. There was absolutely no sign of the poachers that Sergio had called in before he had vanished. There were no tire tracks from any vehicle other than Sergio's motorcycle. There was no broken vegetation or anything like that. It looked like no car had ever been driven into these trees. And there were no signs of any kind of struggle either that would explain why Sergio was gone and why his gun and radio were disassembled by the side of the road. The whole situation just made absolutely no sense. At 4:30 p.m. on March 3rd, 2006, so roughly 18 hours after Sergio had disappeared, a farmer was walking on his property about 12 miles away from Las Cañas when he looked up ahead and he saw this dark figure sitting by the side of the road. The farmer squinted to get a better look, and the figure looked like a man, but he was all curled up into a ball and he was sitting in the mud. Now, keep in mind, this area is like in the middle of nowhere, and so this farmer did not get a lot of people passing through the area, and so to see anybody was pretty rare, let alone what he was seeing now. And so, feeling curious, the farmer called out.
Okay.
Sergio needs to take a nap.
One more quick stop. If I was a farmer, or just like say this was my house, which it is, and right outside the window or right down the block, you saw what looked like a person huddled up with no clothes on and
they said he's
shivering.
naked?
I thought they did, or maybe I just thought that. I don't know. That's what I imagined when I saw.
Okay, so if there's a naked person huddled up,
or even not naked, just sitting there.
There's a person huddled up in the corner over here.
Yep, down the block, like half a block down. Are you going to look out your window and then go see what's going on? Like, get out and go see what's happening.
I might yell out the window. You okay, man?
You good?
Hey, I don't know if I'd go out there, but I mean, I'd probably see if they're okay, or at least notify the authorities that there's a person over here that might need assistance.
There you go. Like,
but they are out in the middle of nowhere.
The inquisitive nature of some people makes me mad. Like, I'm the person who believes in aliens, all that stuff. But if I saw some aliens right across the street, I'm not going over there to go talk to them and be
they
like,
didn't say
hey, what's up? Hey, guys.
Necessarily. They said it was a person that was folded in a ball.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was, like, I don't think it was an alien either. Like, this is probably Sergio. But
Sergio, now the alien.
But if you see something weird, I don't understand how people just go investigate things like that. Now, if it's in my house and I need to protect the people in my house, I get that. But if it's just like a random, like somewhere else, like, nah, man, go ahead, do your thing, bro. I hope you're good.
You
I'm gonna
know
call
me.
you some help, but I hope you're good.
You know me. I've checked on a lot of people.
Exactly. And that's not cool and not okay. And I get mad at you every time.
I only do it if there's other people around. I'm in a crowded area where I can get help if I need it. I'm never gonna go just like in the middle of a cornfield one-on-one with somebody. Like that's seen enough true crime for that. But no, like I'll check on somebody, see if they're okay. Either pull up in my car or I don't know.
You just do stuff and you think people are good, and I don't.
Oh, I know
but
they're
aliens,
not all good.
I trust aliens, though, I guess.
You don't make sense, man. How often do we have to deal with them on a daily?
To this man, but didn't get a response, and so he just started walking towards him. And when he got up close, he saw this man was a police officer in full uniform. He had his knees pulled up to his chest with his arms wrapped around him, and his head was buried in his lap, and so the farmer couldn't see his face. And weirdly, even though it had only recently stopped raining, and the ground that the officer was sitting on was still wet, this man was totally dry. The farmer leaned down and gently put his hand on the man's shoulder and said, "Sir, are you okay?" But the officer didn't react at all. He just stayed there motionless, head in his lap, not reacting, totally silent. And this was just too strange. The farmer backed away, took out his phone, and he called the police. It didn't take long for the police to show up and identify this seated police officer as Sergio Pacheta. But Sergio wouldn't talk to the police any more than he would speak to the farmer. He didn't appear to be physically injured. There was definitely something wrong with him. So the officers called an ambulance and they summoned Sergio's boss to see if he could get Sergio to respond. And when Sergio's boss showed up, he was able to coax Sergio up off the ground, but still Sergio wouldn't speak. All he would do is give his boss a big hug and just break down and cry. So his boss led Sergio over to the ambulance, which had just arrived, and he got him in the back and he sat with him and then went with Sergio to the hospital and followed him into his exam room. At first, inside the exam room, Sergio didn't want anybody to touch him, and he was very anxious, and he kept squinting and grimacing every time the lights were put on him. But after a few minutes, he did let the doctors and nurses remove his clothes and examine his body for wounds. Sergio's boss had expected that Sergio would have injuries. I mean, he figured he had likely been assaulted or kidnapped. But as he watched the doctors and nurses check Sergio out, it was very clear that Sergio did not have any injuries. There were no bruises, no cuts, no sign of any physical struggle at all. And not only that, as the nurse took Sergio's vitals, it was clear that he was not dehydrated or sick at all, despite the fact he had just been missing for 18 hours with no supplies. The only injury the medical team did find on Sergio was to his feet, but it did not help clarify anything. When they removed Sergio's boots and socks, they found these bizarre burns on the soles of his feet. It looked like he'd been standing on a hot surface. Over the next couple of hours, Sergio did finally begin to talk. And here is the totally wild story that he told. At 10 p.m. the night before, when Sergio had followed the poachers into the trees, he had been absolutely certain that he had seen the metal of the poacher's car reflecting the moonlight. However, he didn't. There was no car. There were no poachers. When he turned, all he saw in the darkness were two sets of burning red eyes staring back at him. Sergio stood there stunned, unsure who or what these eyes belonged to. And then before he could do anything, the eyes began to move closer to him. And as they did, Sergio realized with growing horror that these were not human eyes, these were not animal eyes. These eyes belonged to some creature he had never seen before. All he could make out beyond the burning red eyes were these slim gray bodies with big heads and long skinny fingers, and they didn't appear to blink at all. Sergio opened his mouth to scream, but when he did, no sound came out. And that's when Sergio realized that not only could he not scream, but he no longer was able to move. But then suddenly he felt this intense pressure in his torso, and his back sort of involuntarily arched in response. He tried to wrench himself free of whatever seemed to be in control of him, but he couldn't. It felt like his spine was going to snap. And then he felt himself begin to walk out of the forest backwards, like his back is arched in this totally unnatural position, and he's marching out of the trees. And then as he's doing this, he watched helplessly as one of his hands went down and pulled out his phone. And then he dialed the number of that officer, and then this detached, cold voice came out of Sergio's mouth, telling his friend, "Come to Las Cañas, you know what to do." And as Sergio continued to walk in this bizarre bent-over gait, he felt himself reach for his gun. And after he drew it, he watched in horror as his hands fully disassemble it and drop the pieces on the ground. And then he watched himself do the exact same thing with his radio. And the whole time, these red-eyed creatures are just a few feet away, staring at him. It was only after Sergio had disarmed himself that he felt that intense pressure on him subside, and he realized this was his chance to escape. He took off running, but after only going a few steps, he felt himself get hit from behind and he pitched forward. He thought he was falling, but he didn't hit the ground. Instead, it was like he was being lifted up into the sky. And for a moment, he just careened through the air until abruptly, whatever force was holding him up let go. He fell to the ground and somehow managed to land on his feet, but then once again, he was lifted back up.
You know, I would hate that so much. I hate heights. I hate speeds I can't control. My God.
I like lost myself in this story because it's so, like, there's so much happening. But yeah, can you imagine just being possessed by something else or being completely out of control of your body?
I don't need anything picking me up and throwing me. That's terrifying.
Yeah. I know you don't like heights or roller coasters or anything like that. So
no,
that would be bad. But
it'd be really bad.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the video, that I've seen alien videos, or at least people talk about alien encounters where they are able to control their body, control their emotions, or control a person's emotions and body. So like that, yeah, that's crazy. I can't I just can't imagine. I can't get over that. I can't get over the fact that you would be, I mean, even the fact that it was making him speak. And like he had enough, or they controlled him enough to call someone else and tell them to like come there, and that you know what to do. Like,
be like, I don't know what to do though. Right? I mean, now he's not answering his phone.
Nobody told me what to do. So
again, and again, and again. And so as this was happening, Sergio realized these red-eyed creatures must be the ones in control, and they were playing with him. They knew he was trying to escape, but they didn't stop him. They just kept picking him up and throwing him forward over and over again. And as all this happened,
so that explains
Sergio began to feel his feet burn. The last thing he remembered was running through a cornfield. And as he did, he realized suddenly that it seemed like he was all alone. The red-eyed creatures were gone. And so Sergio looked over his shoulder, and all he saw were swaying corn stalks and darkness. And for a moment, he's thinking, maybe this is all over. But then, still running, he turned to look straight ahead, and he saw there was this incredible wall of just pure darkness. There was no cornfield, no ground at all. In fact, there was no sky, no moon, no stars, nothing. It was just...
That would scare me more than anything. Like running into the void or whatever that is, to not see anything or hear anything or just nothing there.
That would have me drop into the little ball.
Yeah. Yep. Because I was wondering like what made him go into like ball mode, and yeah, that probably would.
Ground at all. In fact, there was no sky, no moon, no stars, nothing. It was just pure black, like he had reached the actual edge of the world. And then, once again, he felt himself begin to rise into the air, and he looked down into this darkness, into this void, and staring back at him are two red glowing eyes. After that, Sergio passed out, and he had no idea how he wound up 18 hours later on the side of the road, absolutely frozen in fear. No one has ever been able to explain what happened to Sergio, including Sergio himself. But it should be noted that Argentina and South America more broadly is a very well-known hotbed of paranormal activity. Following this incident, Sergio was so traumatized that he retired from the police force. To this day, cops and locals still report seeing strange lights in and around Las Cañas.
Man. Okay, so after watching this, do you think that alien encounters are real? Or let's just say, do you think that this specific alien encounter is real?
No.
What do you think it was then?
A story.
You think he just made it up?
Sure.
Wow. No.
Although the footprints, though, is a little different. But...
Yep. I believe it, man. I truly believe it. And to have something like this happen to somebody who pretty much appears normal and had lived a normal life, and then all of a sudden this happens and it completely wrecks their life.
At least I know if I ever encounter aliens, I'll come home and tell you and you'd believe me.
Yep. I wouldn't just say you're crazy. I would be like, yep, I believe you. Let's go figure this out.
And I would believe you only because I know you as a person.
Yep. I wouldn't make it up.
But I would not believe a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's sad that this seems to have like just messed up his life. But
I know. I don't know how people go on after having these encounters, because we've seen a lot of videos where people have supposedly had these encounters and then they're like, well, people don't really believe us. We, can't keep a job, our mental health is terrible, can't get married, nothing like this, because can't sleep, even just traumatizing.
Yeah, I don't think that I necessarily would have great difficulty. Like, I don't think I would just quit my job or any of that stuff after if something similar happened to me. But it is very psychological, especially if it was somehow like, even tied to sleep or something like that, you go to sleep and then these things would happen and that would make you terrified to go to bed. So, my heart goes out to people who have to go through these things if they are real. I will say
if you have had an alien encounter or know somebody who has, please call. I'm kidding. But please leave a comment.
There you go.
Let us know about it. Let us know if you believe it or if you think it's all a farce. And let us know any stories that you know of.
Yeah, and while you're there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell.
Friends.
So that every time we're going to be online, share with friends, even share with unfriends, and share with aliens, because aliens count for views and subs too.
Sure.
I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
Thanks for watching another video. We'll see you next time. Yeah, I truly feel like these types of things are legit, especially the stories that have some sort of physical evidence. Like, he could make up the gun thing, like he could have just disassembled his gun, but the whole thing with the steps and the actual shoe marks and all that stuff, like, that's how do you fake that? I guess that there probably is a way to fake it, but I just don't think so. Maybe he had some stilts and he was like stilting his way across this field.
That's what I'm saying. He's really good at leaping and jumping.
Leaping. He's a lemur. Leap.
Zaboomafoo? I was thinking grasshopper, but yeah, Zabu does always do the leap. Leap. He even says leap, doesn't he?
He does. Every time he goes leap.
Aww. Zaboomafoo is the best.
Speaking of every time you hear this music, that means we're about to end our stream. So sad for you, happy for us, because we've had a long day and we're gonna go to bed now. But thank you so much for checking out this stream. Yes, I know that we have people who will watch a video that we do and then go back and watch the full stream. And for you guys, we appreciate you and we thank you for doing that. We see it in the watch time hours for our channel. So please continue to do so. If you like what you see here and you like how we talk about things, just know that we do this all the time. And we will be back later on this week on Sunday to talk about an awesome show by the name of Doom Prophecy, which we have not seen any of yet, but the early reviews are saying that it's pretty good. So I'm excited about it. It'll probably be me solo, but who doesn't want more of this mug? I know you do. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on your way out, and thanks for hanging with us yet again.
You're awesome.
You. Yes, you are.
We appreciate you.
The
and
best.
You matter, and you're cool.
Yes, you matter. And you will matter even more if you hit the subscribe button. Thank you. I'm JD.
I'm Katie.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will see you later. Peace.